a good ball. The flag stays down. Heaney! Oh!
They scored again! It's Davis again! It's job done now!
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 5 of the Northern Ireland podcast with Adam and Andy.
Previously you've heard from Michael O'Neill, Stephen Cregan, Trevor Carson and Warren Feeney. You can watch those episodes back on YouTube or listen to them on iTunes and Spotify.
But today's guest brought about those great nights here at the National Football Stadium at Windsor Park against Spain and England. We talked to him about the circumstance that led to him becoming Northern Ireland manager and the circumstance that led to his departure. So enough talking and let's hear from today's guest, Lawrie Sanchez. So hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Northern Ireland podcast. We are joined today by former Northern Ireland manager Lawrie Sanchez.
Welcome, Lawrie.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for your time. First of all, how are you? How are things?
I'm very good, thank you. Keeping well, healthy, fit. What more can you want in life?
And first of all, what is it you're up to nowadays?
I'm doing an MBA at University of Salford. I've just started that 2-year course. Part-time. It's 2 years distance learning, so you go there 2 days a month, and then the rest of the time you have to do your own reading and such like. Obviously, we have webinars and stuff like that to modern learning, and that's being in the chief executive of a sports organisation. So it's the first one in the world, apparently, and it's got very good credentials, and it's one of the first cohorts on it, and we're just coming up for we finish in May, which is the end of our first year.
How many years do you say that was going to be?
2 years.
2 years, very good. Well, good luck with the rest of that.
Thank you.
Obviously, as you know, today we're here to talk about your time as Northern Ireland manager and to get all the insights on those famous nights that you provided at Windsor Park and going back through the memory books. But first of all, just to kind of take us through chronologically, would be our thought process was to start right from the beginning. Obviously, you were appointed manager in the January of 2004. What was the process of that? What was the first time you were sort of interested in the job when it became available?
Well, the first time when I was Wycombe manager and the previous manager, Sammy McElroy, he got the job actually when I was Wycombe manager, and he didn't get him. He was there, and then I'd managed against him in one team. I thought, well, perhaps that's a career path for me. Obviously, I played 3 times for Northern Ireland. I was doing okay at Wycombe at the time, and you're looking at your next stage and such like. And I thought, well, in the back of my mind, Northern Ireland might be a scenario. Sammy gets the bullet in the October, I think, or November. I get the bullet in the November as well, I think, at Wycombe, and the two things coincided. So I put in an application to the IFA, and I'd interviewed. I'd interviewed with the current, I think, Chris Nichol. Chris Nichol. Chris, who's the assistant manager at the moment?
Jimmy Nichol.
Jimmy Nichol. Sorry, apologies. Was interviewed as well. I think they offered him the job. I'm not sure. I think you have to ask him. I think they offered him the job, but he couldn't get out of his contractual negotiations with his club at the time. He was in Scotland. They said to me, we're trying to sort out the decisions between you two, but obviously Jimmy's got contractual problems. And then they finally decided, well, you can't get out of them, and we'll wanted to offer you the job, which was, brilliant, to be fair. I mean, it's suddenly gone from being sacked, after 5 years as a Division 2 manager was then, to international management in one step. But, something that, although I was being paid less, so when I say about the step up, step down, I was getting paid an awful lot less than I was getting paid at Wycombe. So it shows you what the IFA was at that time, But I wanted the challenge. I thought I could do something there. They hadn't won for 12 games or something, hadn't scored a goal for 13, something ridiculous. Finished their group bottom without winning a game. I think they actually got 4 points. It's quite an achievement because they got 4 draws, didn't they? So I thought, well, back on, I thought, well, I can't do any worse, put it that way. Being quite cynical about it, but I thought I could change things around. And you always want a challenge. And it was a whole new thing to me, the international aspect. We did. I think we scored a goal in our first game. I think David Healy scored in the first game. Then in our second game, I think we beat Estonia away, didn't we? I think Healy scored again. And from then onwards, we went from 124th in the world to when I left, I think we were 27th. I'd like to have got to the 100 places. I was desperate to get to the 100 places.
Round figure.
Yeah, but it just shows the achievement over the course of time there, really.
Like that first game, I remember my brother was at that game and he came back, and obviously he lost the first game 4-1, but he was so happy. Like it was such a barren spell, you know, like over 1,000 minutes or something ridiculous without a goal. It was 4-1, and he came back and he's like, it was 4-1. I couldn't believe. I was like, why are you so happy that? And he's like, just to get that goal, I think was such a massive deal to Northern Ireland fans at that time.
I think the Belfast Telegraph famously carried the headline that we've lost 4-1, but we scored. And that was the main thing. I remember the game. I think it's one of the Scandinavian countries. Forgive me what it was. But I made the pitch very narrow because my thinking was, you know, if we're not a very good team, let's make the pitch as small as possible. It gives us a chance to get about better teams. So I made the pitch very small, forgetting that they had one of their players had a long throw. Didn't they? I'm trying to think of the fullback who used to play for Man United. The name escapes me, but he had an exceptionally long throw. The only trouble was when he went to throw it, the pitch was so narrow, he was throwing it past the far post, which because before, I mean, he'd been hitting the near post. Obviously, he hadn't realised that I'd made the pitch shorter. So yeah, I do remember that from the first game. But it was a start of things. I mean, and as I say, to lose 4-1 and get and the headline being we scored, I mean, just showed how low Northern Ireland fallen at that stage. So that was great. Obviously going to Estonia the next game, I remember that, and winning there. And from, as I say, from then onwards, we pushed our way forwards.
And that first win in Estonia, how much does that mean to you as the manager to kind of get a win in just your second game with where Northern Ireland were at that time?
Well, I'd said when I'd taken over that you know, my three priorities were: 1, score a goal; 2, to get a win; and 3, to go up the world rankings. So the first 2 were crossed off in the first 2 games, which was great, got them out of the way. I think thereafter we then went on a trip to the Caribbean. We had a trip to the Caribbean and we went undefeated in that trip. And I think we got up to 4 or 5 games undefeated, which was, you know, great for the players' confidence, all of a sudden going from couldn't win to could win and then couldn't get beaten. You know, so you don't do things overnight. Everything's a progression. And changing the mentality of the team at the time, who, without being disrespectful to all the players, because no, they weren't all like that. Some people viewed international week as a week away from their clubs, where they could have a couple of nights out and a few drinks, and there was a game at the end of it. And that was, as I say, it was a minority of people that, and I saw that. I spoke with Guild about it because he had the same situation at Wales. You know that this sometimes was a viewing of failing international teams. It's just a good chance to get away and have a bit of fun with your mates. You know, a break from their normal season, football season. So once we weeded those people out of the game, and I won't name names, but I think it's become self-evident who they were during the course of my time there. We ended up with a group of players that dedicated to what they were doing, prepared to come. Because that was another big problem. I mean, pulling out squads was you know, when you're a losing team. I remember famously having the conversation with Mick McCarthy when one of his players pulled out injured, and I said to him at the time, I said, Mick, I'm going to 5-day rule it, yeah, which is still available. You can still 5-day rule. I think Northern Ireland actually have done it since, haven't they? Or they threatened it since. I threatened it, and Mick phoned me up and he said, this was the manager of Sunderland, said, you can't do that, Lawrie. I said, what do you mean I can't do it? You know, he said, I never had to do that when I was Republic manager. I said, yeah, Mick, you were going to World Cup finals and European Championships. Your players had something to go to squads for. My players have got nothing to come to squads for. They've been beaten for the last 3 or 4 years. It's nothing beyond representing their country. And I also amazingly had it off Peter Taylor as well. With the 2 managers phoned me up, and I remember saying to Mick, do you not see the irony of this situation as a former international manager? And he said, Lawrie, when I worked for the Republic, I did what was best for the Republic. When I worked for Sunderland, I do what's best for Sunderland. Mick's he's a typical Northerner, and he's right. I mean, that's what he was. So that 5-day rule worked. I mean, I changed 1 or 2 things, like the players had to phone me and tell me why they weren't coming. They had my number, and on Saturday night they had to phone me. So I had to wait around on a Saturday night, which was a pain in the butt, to be fair, waiting for these phone calls to come through. And to be fair, they never phone off. So and I said, you had to phone me personally. I said, I don't want your agent to phone me. I don't want your wife to phone me. I don't want your girlfriend to phone me. I don't want your mum to phone me. You phone me and tell me what's wrong with you. And I was playing phone me up and say, oh yeah, I'm injured. I said, yeah, but you played all 90 minutes. He said, yeah, I was carrying it for the last 10 or 15. I said, well, your report or 5 day. And the very fact that they had to phone me up and tell me cut down a lot of people pulling out of squads. Before they used to phone David Curry up and say, David, not coming, I've got this, tell the manager. It's easy to do that, or the club used to phone up, to get the doctor to phone up. I said, no, don't want the doctor, you phone me up. So that cut down a few absentees. We got over that absentee thing, which was a big, big problem for not just me, for international managers before me. Because as I say, there was nothing in it at the end of them for them. They were going to a situation where they go in, playing, getting beaten, going back to their clubs, having the mick taken out of them. So to a certain extent, you can understand it. But to change the mentality, you had to go all through these processes, and that one of the processes I went through.
So finding those players that are really invested in coming away with the team, what's more important to you in terms of, as a manager, quality of the player or passion for playing for your country?
Passion for playing. Tony Capaldi is a great example. Tony had played an awful lot for me, and his connection with Northern Ireland wasn't as tight as some people. I think his parents were Northern Irish. He wasn't born in Northern Ireland. To a certain extent, he's his first generation, if you want. And he wanted to play. I asked him. He came to all the places in the world, sat on a bench, blah blah blah. When he got in the team, he played an awful lot of international football, and that's what you wanted. You wanted that passion. I was very lucky in the fact that there were the diehards. David Healy would turn up no matter what, and got his just rewards because he became the greatest goal scorer in Northern Ireland's history, didn't he? And goals per game ratio outshot most of the other major internationals at clubs. In fact, he won one championship. He outscored Ibrahimovic, Raul, who's the other Spanish forwarders at Chelsea? Torres. He outscored them cumulatively in the European Championship, which is a phenomenal achievement, considering how many chances they had at goal, considering how many chances we had at goal. So, and Gillespie. Gillespie's a classic. I don't think he was too enamoured with me when I took over. He played to me, he wasn't too enamoured with me. But over the course of time, he saw what I was doing. And at the end of the day, I saw him on the field arguing with players to do what I was teaching them to do. So, that development of a player, I think, probably through him, summed it up as much as anything.
Hi, I'm Stephen Cregan, and you're listening to the Northern Ireland Podcast.
And just a quick game to speak about before we go on to England, and that win would be the Wales game at the Millennium Stadium, a game that I think lots of Northern fans still remember, the 2-2 draw.
I was watching the rugby on Saturday, and I was thinking, probably the last time that was full would have been when we were there, playing under the closed roof, 10 against 9 at the end of the game. That was an unbelievable night of football. That's got to be one of my, proudest moments and best remembered moments of my football career that night. You had to be there. The fans are fantastic. The closed roof meant there was a great atmosphere in the place. We brought over 5,000 fans to Wales to watch that game, and it was just phenomenal. I remember saying after David was sent off. So obviously we've got Michael Hughes sent off and Robbie Savage to start with, so down to 10-10. Then David gets sent off for celebrating the goal, so we're down to 9 versus 10. And I remember saying to Terry Gibson, what formation are we playing at this moment in time? Because I've never played with 9 men before. So we got 4-4. 1-4-4 is our formation. It was just a tremendous night. The result we got and how the players played and just the whole, it was international football at its best. And that gave us great credibility as well within the Northern Ireland fans, I think, that night. And that night, Tony Capaldi was absolutely outstanding. He played as left back, wing back, centre forward, all in the one game, didn't he? In fact, he had a chance to win it at the end when he had a one-on-one with a keeper when he broke away in the 90th minute when we were playing with 9 men when you should be knackered. But that was a fantastic night.
What are you thinking when that second red card goes up?
Well, we were bemused, to be fair. We didn't know what it was for. it was for taking his shirt off or something, wasn't it? I think he celebrated and went across, and then the next thing we know, he's sent off. And I said to Gibbo, "What's he sent off for?" We didn't know what he was sent off. We were just. I remember talking to Gibbo, and it was going on. I remember saying, "This is great fun, isn't it?" The heat of the moment, and everything's going. You're looking around, thinking, "Cool, this is great fun. You're in charge of all this, And it was like Mark Hughes' last game for Wales because he then went on and took the Blackburn job the day after, didn't he? So there was a lot of things about that game, but I remember talking to one player I'd left out actually, and I said to him, "Look, you're not in the team, you're not in the squad because blah blah blah," and he was obviously disappointed because he expected to be on the bench and he wasn't. And that's before the days you had 22 subs or whatever, how many subs you're allowed now. Mm-hmm. So some members of the squad could turn, which to be fair, it's a great change of rule. It means you don't turn up, don't bother putting kit on and watch it from the. I mean, I remember taking Brunt and Davis to Azerbaijan, and they were sat up in the as young kids. They were sat upstairs because we couldn't have them on the bench because it was 5 subs there or something, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So you had squad to train with the 20, and 5 of them sat upstairs and it was obviously, what am I doing here type thing you can understand. So it's a good rule change there. But I said to him, look, I know you're disappointed, but you will be involved in future squads. Don't do anything stupid. Don't charge off home or anything like that. Anyway, he's got in his car and he's driven up the motorway, and then he's turned around and come back. Having thought about it, he turned around and come back. I saw him after the game and he said to me, "Lawrie, you're right." He said, "It would be stupid to have left this squad because, we're going to do good things." And that really, someone that had been, I had to, custard pie for that game, had bought into it as well. And, so there was a lot of, I think the one thing I've got to say, my legacy, if anything, with Northern Ireland is probably they went from a team that they were getting beaten, they were expecting to get beaten, they had no real aspirations about anything, to a team, when I left, were top of their group for the World Cup. And I think that mentality, that change of mentality across the players, across the games like the Wales game, the England game, the Spain game, gave them the base on which, Michael was able to build that this can be done. And I think, I know it's different players, but there's a lot of the same players, to be fair. I mean, the Johnny Evans this world, I gave his debut to Steve Davis, I gave his debut to Aaron Hughes, was still hanging in there at the end with Bairdy and that when they went to European Championship. But that players saw from what it was to what it could be. And that change of that mentality set, I think it gave a foundation on which Michael was able to build to what he's done himself in getting the team, to a European Championship, almost to a World Cup.
Because that was going to be my next question, as you mentioned it a few times there, was only a few months later after that Wales game, you gave Stephen Davis his debut. Mm. When did you first kind of come across Dave?
We took him to Azerbaijan, as I said, for pull-outs, as you do. Azerbaijan, he wants to go to Azerbaijan, to be fair, Azerbaijan's quite nice actually, if you actually go there.
We've been to Baku recently.
Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, anyway, we're going to go in there, and obviously there was pull-outs and such like, because there's nothing in the game, and people had this and that. So we called up Steve Davis and called up Brunty as well, and we took them both there. And certainly Steve Davis, I don't know about Chris Brown, but Steve Davis certainly came with us. And he impressed us in training. He was like this 18-year-old kid. He hadn't made his debut for Villa, and he was outstanding. And me and Gibbo looking at each other thinking, really, he should be in the squad, but he's only a kid, and I can't, if I'm going to leave anybody upstairs, it's got to be the kid, to be fair, rather than the experienced pros. But we were impressed with what we saw with him. Later on, when we took a squad to the US during the
Canada, I think was.
Didn't go to Canada.
His game was Canada, wasn't it? His debut.
His debut was it when we lost to Canada? I think.
Yeah, that was his debut.
At Windsor Park.
Yeah, didn't go down well with the fans. But we don't like it. It's funny how you go from losing all the time to suddenly start winning, and they don't like losing, which is, you can understand. But we went to America, and I made him captain. I think he was the youngest Northern Ireland captain, wasn't he, at 21 of that. And
against Uruguay?
Yeah, Giant Stadium, I think it was. We were playing Uruguay in Giant Stadium in front of about 2,000 people, 200. in the hundreds it was, but this massive that was quite a bizarre experience as well. So he came on that tour, but he grew on that tour because we had a lot of the younger players on that tour, because obviously experienced players end the season had, for various reasons, decided not to go, and I think that tour made him as captain in the other people's eyes as well. You know, I know Aaron Hughes did captain, but as a future captain, he laid down all the markers in that tour. He was outstanding as a player, outstanding in his behaviour, and that's why I took him to Fulham. To be fair, I mean, he was very unfortunate at Fulham. At Fulham, he was squeezed out by more experienced pros. Without naming names here, especially after I left. He wasn't protected by the manager. One or two experienced pros who were playing in similar situations squeezed him out of this thing for their own benefit. But I mean, he's proved his quality, thereafter at Rangers and back at Southampton. And did you just come back to Rangers?
Yes.
Yeah, he's back at Rangers.
So he's had an exceptional career. It's no surprise that Les Reed, who was with me at Fulham, brought him back to Southampton, and he showed his integrity as well, because he wouldn't leave on a free, would he? He made them pay money for him, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I mean, great character, and pleased to have been involved with the development of him, certainly as a young player at Northern Ireland and at Fulham, if not quite successfully, but and Johnny Evans as well, another young lad who I see still playing today. I mean, I remember when he first came into the squad, we were struggling we wanted to play 11 versus 11. We didn't have enough injuries, so I asked the youth team manager to send over a couple of players, and Johnny turned up, and he's played left back, he's played right back, and one of my coaches has come across and he said, he should be in the team. He's in the under 21s, but he should be in the team. And I thought, he should be in the play team. So we lost to, I think he made his debut against Spain, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
I mean, can you imagine it? Was he 21 of that, making his debut against Spain? And they had the three forwards, and they Torres, Raul, and I'm trying to think of the other forward they had at the time as well. They had three big forwards for Spain. Can't remember, but he made his debut at left back. So he's both feet, but he's a right foot normally. But he made it. And during the course of the game, all three Spanish forwards went over, thinking, "Well, it's the young lad. I'll have a go at him." And they all came back to the other side. They'd all wandered over that pitch, saying, "Yeah, I'll get up against this young kid." And they all wandered back. So I remember, that debut, and I see him now still playing. You're thinking, it's so, to see someone do well after what you've helped to do at the beginning, certainly internationally.
Hi, I'm Warren Feeney, and you're listening to the Northern Ireland podcast.
Lawrie, so expectations is certainly something that you gave back to the Northern Ireland fans, but I think I'd be right in saying there wasn't many expectations going into that away game against England. But just tell me about that home game against England and what happened after that game.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously lost the away game 4-0, didn't we? Which was disappointing, but not unexpected, to be fair. It wasn't at Wembley, it was at Old Trafford as well, which my son was mascot, which was quite nice, and he was the only. All the rest were English mascots. So I remember talking to him. He said, "All the rest were just English fans that had Northern Ireland shirts on because they had to drag one out each, didn't they?" He was the only person involved with Northern Ireland. So we come to get them at home. The thing I remember most from that game is that is the challenge after about 10-15 seconds that set the tone. His name, centre forward, escapes me.
Rooney?
No, half centre forward. Tall guy. God. It will come back to me. But after 10-15 seconds, he's clattered one of their players, the first challenge of the game, and that set the tempo for the game. I mean, we knew what we had to do, and we were right at it that night. I mean, it was when they had Beckham playing sort of quarterback that game, I think, and they decided he wanted a little roll off quarterback. And to be fair, they were gracious in defeat. I mean, Sven came across and said, congratulations, well done. And then Beckham came across as well and said, well done after the game as well. But I've got a picture, I think it's been reproduced a few times, of the Healy goal, isn't it, from being onside. Turns around and whacks it across the keeper. I've got a picture, painted picture. I've got a mouse mat. I've got think I've got a cup holder, got the Healy shirt. I mean, he signed a shirt for me as well after that. I don't give many players shirts, but I thought that's one to get signed. It was just, it was probably, I wouldn't say it was the turning point in what we did, but certainly it was the end of a championship, and it sort of set the tone for what we could do next time round. Again, we were 100 places below England at that time in the world ranking, so to beat them was absolutely phenomenal. I think Sven got panned for it. I think it was the only competitive game, only qualifying game that Sven lost. I think some ridiculous stat someone told me once, or World Cup qualifying stat. It's the only one he ever lost. It opened. I could see the players after the game. It opened their eyes to what could be achieved. This bloke had come from England who wasn't really Northern Irish, despite the fact his mum was born there and he had 3 cats. But as Willie McFall famously said to me, Danny Wilson and Kevin Wilson, when we first joined the squad, he said, "I know you 3 aren't English, but." So that's always stuck with me, So yeah, I mean, I had to earn the right for a non-Northern Irish manager to want to take over, and I think that at that game, I think everybody in the dressing room and the players and the squad thought, "Well, Ian's talking rubbish. He does know what he's doing. We can do some of the stuff that he said that we could do." Up until the England game, I think not everybody was on side, certainly amongst the players and certainly amongst the press. I think after the England game, they said, "We get it now. This is it. We get it. We just beaten England." And I can go back to my club on Saturday, or against all the England players, and say, "Yeah, we just beat you lot," which was novel for them because they'd been in that situation. They'd been the brunt of the jokes. "Oh, you got beaten by Malta. You got beaten here. You got beaten by Canada." And much is just banter, but you want to fight back against it. So when you walk into your club having beaten England, you're thinking, that gives you real credibility in the dressing room. "Oh, what's going on there? You're doing something right. International, you've got a chance now." And that was the sort of first real major, I think, hurdle that got some credibility into my staff and myself, and to the team as well, and within themselves as a group of players, we could do this.
We were talking to Stephen Craigan, one of the episodes we did at the start of this, and he was talking about the build-up to that England game, and one of his quotes that had me astounded, he said that you had the capability of making them believe. He said that before the game, you were saying, "I only think that a certain number of you believe. I think we need this number of people to believe." And he said before the game, Chris Baird came up to him and said, "We can beat these lot." And Craigan said at that moment he thought, "We can't beat these lot." Was that something you did before the game? Was it kind of just making players believe at what they could do?
It's a very difficult thing when you take over a group of players that have been beaten, not won for that length of time, not scored a goal, not even scored a goal in 13. How can you go 13 games without scoring a goal? I mean, it's almost impossible to do, isn't it? I think that it would work, in fact, didn't they, 4 or 5 times? But so you were beaten down mentality, and that's what I was trying to change. And by the time of the England game, we'd gone to the Caribbean, we had a good run, we had a few wins, we started on the path, we'd lost some games, of course. I think half of them were onside. I think half of them were probably not fully onside, and half of them were there still making their minds up which way to go. I think after the game, I think 3/4 and more were fully onside. And I just had to weed out the ones that weren't onside, and there were still a few people still onside. And over the course of the next time, I weeded them out. And there's good players. If you look at that squad, who were available that weren't in that England squad, and weren't in the squad against Spain, and they'll look back at it and thinking, and there'll be people like Steve Craigan, with the greatest respect to Stephen, was I didn't have Johnny Evans. Well, I did have Johnny Evans at the time, but I preferred Stephen Craigan at centre half because his relationship with Aaron Hughes was so good. But he was a workman. I mean, his strength was he was a workman. He did all those nasty things. He was a solid player. He wasn't a Premier League player by any stretch of the imagination, but he played in that squad, and he was as crucial to that squad as any Premier League player. that game was a turning point in that respect for the mentality of the squad. And I think after that, I think we could go on from there.
Hi, I'm Michael O'Neill, and you're listening to the Northern Ireland podcast.
So after that result, and then obviously the absolutely massive game against Spain, how did things change for you? Even just like walking around Belfast, like how did it change people treating you? Did you ever have to buy a drink again?
To be fair, I've got to say, Northern Ireland fans have been fantastic to me. Even in the early days, from the moment I took over, it was an Anglo-Irish, Northern Irish manager. Jimmy Nicholl would have been a hero to him from his time with, I think the big thing, I've got to say it, I've got to mention is bringing Jerry on board, Jerry Armstrong. And I think at the interview stage when they say, you've interviewed quite well, and I think I can quite talk well in an interview. And they said, who's going to be your assistant? I said, Jerry Armstrong. And they go, Jerry? He's going to be, I said, yeah, he's agreed to be my assistant. Oh, I see. And I think then you can see one or two of the people suddenly get their heads up, the committee thinking, credibility level goes up with that. And I remember meeting Jerry at the Hilton just down the road here, the one I mentioned to you, which you can see from the motorway. I said, Jerry, I've got to meet up in that. And I said, yeah. So we met there at the Hilton. I was coming back from London. And I said, I've got the job. And he said, you what? He said, I've got the job. My assistant didn't even think I was going to get the job. He said, how'd you do that? I said, Jerry, don't worry about how I did that, mate. If I can do that, we can do stuff. So are you still on board for it? Oh, yeah. And Jerry was brilliant. I mean, he was fantastic with the press. He did all those. He kept the press happy and away from me to a certain extent. We talked to anybody and everybody. And to be fair, going back to the fans, from that first moment, I got, there was the fans themselves. I always felt they were really on my side. They were really good. I've never had, even in the way that how it finished and after the Spain game, the instance after the Spain game, I've never had fans ever, I feel criticise me, certainly in public, and every time I go to Northern Ireland I always get a good welcome. But you're right, the Spain game again, so we lose Iceland 3-0, don't we? Which is fantastic. Although to be fair, in hindsight, they looked like they could start to do stuff, and they did. I think Good Johnson was still playing at 38, didn't he, and scored a couple of goals of that. And we lose 3-0 at home. In fact, we always lost 3-0 at home first game, didn't we? I think we lost to Poland 3-0 at home. Yeah. It was a tradition where you lost 3-0 at home in your first game, no matter who you played. I mean, I always say to managers in international, if you ever take over, don't worry about your first game. Always win the second one, because you've got 2 months between your next game, and you can always leave on a high. Because everybody forgets the first game. All they remember is the last game. Don't win the first one, lose 3-0 on the second, and you've got 2 months to pine over it. So we lose 3-0 to Iceland. End of the world, as it always is in football. And it was a turning point, the Spain game. It was fantastic, and it was probably the beginning of the end of my time in Northern Ireland as well, in that the players had gone into town after the game, after the Iceland game. There's no curfew Saturday night, we were stuck at the Hilton in our town. Players had gone into town, as well as their one. And some of them been photographed in a nightclub with a bottle of champagne on the table, and they between them. Not the cleverest thing to do. I'm going down the lift, and David, he says, "He's in the paper this morning, Gaffer." I said, "No." He said, "Well, I just got to say I'm sorry." I said, "Why? What is it?" He said, "Well, you'll see it anyway." So obviously I come down breakfast, so I'm showing the paper. I think, well, Saturday night there's breaking no curfew. If they think that's what they want to do and get caught photographed in it, there's nothing to do with me. But I was disappointed that everything we'd done with Northern Ireland was all good feel factor. That and the sports journalists would tell you it's nothing to do with them. It's the news journalists, blah blah blah. But anyway, so we have a training session at Windsor in the morning. I say to the players, "Look, we've all seen the paper. I'm not going to take any action because it's not the cleverest thing to do. Having lost 3-0 at home on Saturday night, to go out on the town, show as if you don't care. But it's your choice. It's not mine. There was no curfew. You don't break any rules of mine. I'm not going to have anything to do with the press after the game, one way or the other, just to show my, anger at it. Whether you talk to them or not is down to you. It's not for me to tell you what to do, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm not talking to the press, full stop, whatever the result of the game. So we start the game. I dropped Mike Taylor for the first time, which is always a big decision. Roy Carroll in goal. Gets injured after about 5 minutes, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember to tell Mike, look, Mike, you've been dropped, and he didn't take it particularly well, Mike. I said, but you've got a chance now to be involved in a great night and be a massive era. So whatever your thoughts prior, while you sat on the bench here, get on, Fleming, do your job. And he virtually did. David, who scores, we go down behind, don't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go behind.
Twice.
Come back, go
twice.
behind, come back, and then the great kick for the third goal, where Mike, we practiced it as well. David was quite quick. I mean, he doesn't look quick, but he is quite quick. Certainly over short distances. And we'd always practice catching, kicking. Once he catches it, split, and he try and hit you in those. And it was a classic of what we'd done. Cool, kicked, him versus Puyol, lobs a keeper. Great goal. One of the things we've been working on all my time with Dave Besson, we've been working with Mike back, because Mike wasn't the greatest kicker in the world, but David worked in trying to ping that ball. And we win 3-2. I mean, the other goal, to be fair, is the straight off the training ground was the free kick goal, where they all come in. And again, when you see stuff on a training ground that you've worked at, and it reinforces everything you're doing. If they score goals from it, people say, well, that was good. Let's next time we do something, let's make sure we do it. Sometimes you do set plays with players that most boring. They go through the motions, and you're thinking this isn't really going in. But when they get it and it works, you see next time you ever do anything on a training field, people say, "Oh, that worked last time," or you say to them, "Wait, this is how we score goals. Work at it." That gave me great pleasure as well. Whenever he goes like that, and David comes around and whacks it in, So we win 3-2. Classic.
There weren't scrappy goals either,
Great hat-trick.
There were 3
great hat-trick.
Great goals.
Yeah, it's a great hat-trick. And we come back after that game. I think Spain lost the following game to Sweden or Denmark, one of them. And after that, they didn't go undefeated again in a competitive competition till they come out of 2 European
They
Championships.
won the Euros and the World Cup.
And then the Euros again.
Yeah.
They didn't lose another competitive game, a qualifying competitive game. Or if they did over the next 6-7 years, it was 1 or 2. I think they lost in the Confederations Cup in that one in South Africa prior to, but they won the 3 competitions back to back, didn't they? So that, and he was on the verge of getting a bullet because of that game, and then lost the next game. It was, but I'd been, because of that newspaper article in the morning, rightly or wrongly, I said that the chief executive's come in and said, "Are you doing press?" I said, "I'm not doing press." He said, "In fact, I'm going home. As soon as I want to get out of here." I said to Bess and Dave, I'm going to think about what's going on here, I came back, but I think thereafter I had a meeting with the press. Basically, I said, "Look, any access you had to me before, you can forget. Don't phone me up outside of press conferences. Don't talk to you might have my private number, but don't contact me outside of official days. I'll give you the 15 minutes before the games and the time afterwards, but that's it. I'm not doing any more." We had a meeting in a hotel in Belfast, because I was asked to come over. And I said, basically, you've got, I don't know how many games I'd left at that time. It's my end of my contract. You've got 10 odd games to get me, and I've got 10 games to get out of here before you get me. So subsequently, when the Fulham job came up, it was a no-brainer. Much as I'd have loved to have stayed, although I was never offered another contract. I had no contract offer from the IFA. I thought, I can get out here before results turn around, and they do have the ability to get not the fans on board, but once you lose results, then your credibility with fans starts to drop, as every manager does. And at this time, I was on a high with the fans. Well, I've got to say that the major error I made, it was a major error, and I've got to hold my hand up to it, was the way I left. Obviously, I've given you the background of why I left, but what I should, and to be fair, Fulham put me under pressure at the same time, which basically they were saying that after Kevin Keegan had done England and Fulham at the same time, fired, not been happy with it, and he wasn't prepared to put up with another manager doing both. And what I should have said and didn't was I should have at that time, and I was. They wanted me to be manager, and so I was in a reasonably strong position. Would say, look, let me do the Northern Ireland games until the end of the campaign, or when they can no longer qualify. That's what I should have said, because I had 3 of the team in my squad anyway, Hughes, Baird, and Davis, and I should have put my foot down and said, look, until such time in Northern Ireland out of qualification for the World Cup, let me do the games. And to be fair, 2 international weeks, I went to New York and I went to Fulham in Venice. And I said to the bloke, the chief executive said to me, where are you going with the international, where are you going? I said, I went to Venice for my birthday. He said, oh, that's great. He said, I said to him, I could be running an international team this weekend without affecting Fulham one iota. I could have taken Dave and I could have taken Terry. We could have gone and run an international team for that period. Left the rest of the players, because there weren't that many players left, because we're all internationals anyway, in charge of the rest of the coaches. And I regret that. Of all my career, I've got to say that is my biggest regret, because I think we could have still qualified. In hindsight, what happened with Fulham? I mean, they're still in the qualification process, and I'm out of a job. So it's a ridiculous situation. But for the fans and for everybody associated, that I feel bad about that. I feel bad about it. But there were reasons at the back of my mind where I felt I have to get out now, otherwise I'm not going to get out cleanly.
Okay. So we'll move on to the Gawa zone. Some questions here for some fans. Here's the first one.
Hi Lawrie, Pete Snodden here. So as a Northern Ireland fan, whenever you left the job as manager of the national team, I was gutted, as were all of the Green and White Army, particularly after the success that we had enjoyed under your leadership. So emotionally, for the fans, it was a difficult time, and I appreciate the lure of the Premier League. But for you, emotionally, how difficult was it to walk away?
Well, I think you can see in the answer I gave just before that, if they show the clip in the right order, it was a big thing. But I felt I had a target on my back, and it was a matter of waiting for me to fail. We were top of the group. It was a big error not pushing Fulham to stay in charge, to see that period out, to see the qualifying period out one way or the other. Especially as I had 3 of the players in my squad as well at the same time. And it was horrendous watching and thinking what I would have done and what subsequently happened. And I mean, they came within the last game of not qualifying anyway. I think if I'd have been in charge, we'd have qualified then and there. But the law of the Premier League, we all work in the Premier League. I mean, that's our goal. And when you don't often get a chance to the Premier League. To be fair, I'd previously been offered a chance at the Premier League, but I'd have had to give up Northern Ireland. But it was only to the end of the season. Someone, not that season, but someone earlier, in fact it was that season, someone earlier had come to me and said, a club, Premier League side, and said, would you be prepared to manage the end of the season? We'd have to give up Northern Ireland. And I said, no, I wouldn't. So when Fulham said, you have to give it up, and there's a proper contract, length of contract and everything, it's a really, really tough one. But at the end of the day, we all work with the greatest respect to Northern Ireland. The Premier League is the pinnacle of football as any manager, and if you're offered the chance, you've got to take the chance. So I turned it down once, and I thought, I like Fulham, I like the club, I like the whole atmosphere of the place. I had a clean board to do what I wanted to do. I thought, I'm not going to get a better chance to move to a Premier League side, and so I took it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said earlier, in hindsight, it didn't prove to be the best move, and I should have done more to pursue staying in charge of Northern Ireland, because I could have quite easily done the job at the same time, but there were factors at both ends stopped me doing it.
Okay. Hi Lawrie, Justin Guiney here. Just wondered, after the England game, who celebrated the most in the changing rooms?
It's funny, in those days, I mean, the dressing rooms, I think they're a little bit better now, aren't they? I haven't been in them in 10 years or so, but it was pretty bleak in there when we were there. And we had a little cubby hole opposite them when we were sort of, I think everybody celebrated. I mean, it was a fantastic achievement. I remember going back to the hotel that night, and a friend of mine was over from England, a journalist, and we had a few drinks in the bar, and I don't know what the players did. To be fair, I didn't see too much of them, but it was. I think someone told me that night that there was a Republic game on in the bars, and they were showing on some bars were showing both games in the bars at the same time because it was such an achievement. So yeah, I think we all celebrated in our own way, but it was a tremendous night.
Hi Lawrie, it's Craig here. Who would be your number one transfer target in the current Northern Ireland squad?
Oh, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, they've done so well. To be fair, I'm obviously more attached to my players that I had, the Davises and Evans at that time. Although I see Will Briggs just gone for 4 million, hasn't he? I mean, yeah. So there are good players coming through, and Michael has proven that he's changed the squad around. I look at the team now, and there's less and less of my players 10 years later. The Johnny Evans and Steve Davis at the end of their careers, aren't they? And it's the new ones coming through. But I think you got obviously this campaign has been a building campaign for the next major championship. The relegation doesn't really count as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what will be measured on is next major competition, and hopefully those players who've got plenty of experience this competition will come out and show themselves next time round.
Is there anyone in particular in the squad at the minute that you would have your
No, so Griggy's one I've looked at and I thought, can he do it at the top level? And he's gone from Wigan to Sunderland. Now, it's still not the top level. The top level players are still Evans, Davis when he was at Southampton. They need to be playing at that level before they, to make that development. I mean, I think we developed some players like Bairdy are brought into the Premier League. Healy got a chance at the Premier League. Davis got a real chance at the Premier League when I played at Villa. So they've been brought up into the Premier League. And I think the more Premier League players you have, much as you need a good squad, the more Premier League players you have, the better chance you've got of doing good things.
Because being honest, obviously, Northern Ireland squad now, we don't have many Premier League players, and you probably didn't at the time as well. But how does it work getting the most? Because when these players come together, when you watch Northern Ireland now, you wouldn't look at that pitch and think half of them play in the Football League. Yeah. You'd think they are top quality players. When they come together as a team, their standards, I don't know if they raise, I don't know if as a team it works, but how did you find that?
Well, I said to them, look, whatever you've done at your own clubs, that's your work, you work when you get there. When we come here, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do at corners. This is what we're going to do at set plays. This is what we're going to do here. This is what we're going to do there. This is the way we're going to play. And I laid down, and this is going to be Team Northern Ireland. When we come here, for 10 days, we'll practice that, train that, do that, you do that. And then when you go back to clubs, do what you do at your clubs. So if your club's a footballing club, you get your football. If it's a whatever type of football they do, you play that. But when we're here, this is what we do. Let's make it plain. This is Team Northern Ireland. This is what we do. Don't want anything else. Don't want you to say, well, we do this at my club. Do this. This is it. And it took a bit of time for people to buy in because some, you've got people coming from, in fact, McManus was still playing the Irish League at the time, wasn't he, when he was in goal for us? And I think the centre forward came across to. I had a centre forward. A couple of centre forwards actually played in the Irish League, didn't they? At the time, Smithy was there, and Gary, who's a Hamilton. Yeah. So they're both Irish League players when I took over. So, and then we had Premier League players, so we had a massive. So this is what we do. If you buy into it, you be involved. And Smithy bought into it and got to move across the water, didn't he? Gary's managing, or was managing, still managing.
He's manager at Glenavon, yeah.
Glenavon, and he was a lively lad when I had him, but he played some games. So, and we played this way, and this is what we did. And some of the players said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. It's a bit, it's not what I do." And that was fine. And they, Premier League players, and they didn't play, and they missed out on. A great history of 4 or 5 years. They missed out on being able to tell their family they beat England at Windsor, they beat Spain before they were the massive great power they are now. They missed out on those nights. Where was it? Vienna? Denmark? Denmark, isn't it?
Denmark drew with Denmark.
Which was a fantastic night. Unbelievable night. We were under the cosh for 90 minutes. Unbelievable. And we got away with it. But fantastic. We get massive. The fan base is brilliant. I mean, they come to these games, and in fact, I think where's Vienna in Austria? When they're coming to me after they came to Austria. The thing said, your fans won't go home because they kept them behind. They said they won't go home. Can you tell them to go home? So I've had to go out to the microphone, haven't I? And I've said, I've always wanted to say this. Good night, Vienna. And please go on. But those moments are fantastic, and so you had to buy into what we were doing, and the idea was that we could merge the strengths of all the players, and if they did this and did this in that route, and were prepared to do this, then we would all benefit. And that's what you have to do at the level of, when you're England, it's different. I mean, they're all coming from Premier League clubs. They're all passy. So let's just passy more. When you've got playing Premier League players who pass the ball to Irish League players who hoof the ball, you've got to find something that fits everybody and fits their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, it was a classic. I mean, I remember Aaron Hughes got injured in the game before Spain, the Iceland game. He got cut. Doctor said after the game, Aaron's going home. I said, what do you mean Aaron's going home? He said, well, he's got 8 stitches in his eyebrow, can't play on Wednesday night. I said, we're playing Wednesday night? He said, yeah, playing Spain. I said, yeah, you won't have to head a ball Wednesday night because they'll pass. He won't have to, playing England, yeah, he's going to have to be, he won't have to head a ball. He headed one ball that night, and he didn't even have to head that, but he headed one ball. And he's playing with 8 stitches in his head. Doctor sending him home. Stories go on and on. I mean, when you think back on them, but I've got to say, it's I've had great places at a good time at Fulham. There's good and bad at all clubs. I've got to say, at Northern Ireland, I mean, I can only say great things about what the players did, how the fans were, what we did as a team, my staff, Jerry. Who all contributed towards it. There's so many positive aspects from that. It's a job I left thinking we've done the best we can. We've all achieved more than perhaps we should have achieved, and hopefully it can be used as a stepping stone onwards to the next step.
Hiya, I'm Trevor Carson, and you're listening to the Northern Ireland podcast.
Hi Lawrie, Stephen here. Can we expect to see you back in management anytime soon? And if so, do you prefer club or international management?
I've got to say I loved international management, and given a chance I would manage internationally again tomorrow. I can understand why Michael, who I understand is head office to manage at club level, prefers to manage at international level. I certainly see it's personally it's a great lifestyle. Allows you an opportunity to develop yourself outside of the day-to-day activity of a club. Sometimes day-to-day activity of players can drain you. Keeping 20 young men happy who are all earning more than you and like doing their own thing is it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do successfully for any length of time. And whereas international management, you are given time, you're given campaigns, you're already sacked during a campaign. So you know what you've got to do and how long you've got to do it. It allows you to plan, it allows you to put your things in. The only thing you haven't got is you haven't got loads of games. I mean, now with all friendlies being taken out and them all being competitive games, you're perhaps judged a little bit more on a game-by-game basis rather than just, well, it's a friendly, don't worry about it, it's the internationals that count, main internationals, which isn't a bad thing. So I've got to say, yeah, if I had a chance, international would be my preferred option, and I love travelling. I've got to say, I love travelling. I mean, it's fantastic. The places you see that you wouldn't normally see. You go to Azerbaijan, go to Giants Stadium, you play in Soldiers Field. I mean, go to the Caribbean and experience all that. The travelling is a massive add-on to the job. So, with regard to myself, I'm doing MBA at the moment. I'd like to go in more the chief executive situation, oversee a club, I think, rather than actually be at the cutting edge, to put managers in place to decide on a way a club is going to go. I mean, I've done the managing thing for a length of time. There's always someone above you dictating ultimately where you go and what you've got to do it with. And I'd like the situation to be the person saying, well, this is the club, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to do it, and appointing a manager and technical director and people like that are a part of that process.
Finally, for myself, I mean, obviously, you looking back in Northern Ireland career, it sounds like you obviously have fond memories of it. And at the end of the day, the fans look at, I think we call it this, and I think the fans call it, the Lawrie Sanchez days. Those famous years. Where does that all rank when you look back on your career?
Achievement-wise, that is probably all right. I got looking to the semi-final of the FA Cup. I got to manage in the Premier League, which not very long, but I did get managed in the Premier League. But my time in Northern Ireland, those 4 years, I've got to be 3.5 years. I've got to be probably my consistently happiest time. Stressful at times, especially early on when we were trying to get credibility about what we were trying to do. Working with great friends like Dave Besson, Terry Gibson, obviously Jerry as well, and winning those marquee games. People remember I was at Windsor Park when we beat England. I was at Windsor Park. We didn't do it. If we'd done it at Wembley, it would have been great. But you would have had all the fans there. You had the fans there. We didn't do it in Spain. We did it at Windsor Park, coming from behind, twice. Those nights will stay with me, and do stay with me. I was looking at my memorabilia the other day. I've probably got more memorabilia up for my career in my house than I have of any other club. As a player as well. So they were probably the highlight in hindsight of my managerial career, what we achieved there from the start we had to where we left. Top of the group, World Cup qualifying group, above Spain, above Sweden, above Denmark, halfway through. And as I say, the other side of that is the regret. You think, well, should have finished the job. Should have I stayed to finish the job, but I certainly should have put my foot down and attempted to do it from Fulham.
You mentioned your career outside Northern Ireland there, and it just reminded me we have to ask you about this. The teletext player,
Roy Essendon, who was from Northern Ireland, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. How close was he to getting a call?
I'm not sure I understand.
That's what he said.
And I think the answer to that has been answered. Great story. For someone to come from there to where we got him. Centre forward scored 1 goal that year, and that was against Leicester to get us through the quarter-final to the semi-final. I didn't have a club, wasn't cup tied, was a centre forward, and hadn't scored a goal. Scores that goal. You couldn't write it, and literally his agent saw teletext and phoned us from teletext.
It's a movie waiting to happen, isn't it?
Really is.
But I think finally we just want to say, from the Northern Ireland fans especially, just a massive thank you to everything that you give to our fans, and a big good luck for the rest of what you're doing.
Thank you. No, and thank you to them as well. As I say, apologies how it ended, but no, great times there.
Thank you to Lawrie Sanchez for his time in today's honest and insightful podcast.
You can see this episode and all the others on YouTube, iTunes and Spotify, so make sure you're subscribed to see them first.
That's obviously the end of today's episode, but we'll see you next time, and we'll see you here next week as we begin our Euro 2020 qualifiers against Estonia and Belarus. Are we walking out, shall we? I don't know.
Armstrong! Northern Ireland have scored through Jerry Armstrong. It's a good ball, the flag stays down. Heaney! Oh!
They scored again! It's Davis again! It's job done now.